The Great Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as lead researcher Marcus stepped up to the floating platform. His deep blue skin sparkled under the bright lights, and his 4 arms trembled slightly as he arranged his data crystals. The 100 council members stared down at him from their elevated seats, their various appendages and sensory organs all focused intently on the nervous scientist. "Honorable Council," Marcus began, his voice steadied despite his anxiety. "I come before you today with disturbing news about a planet we recently discovered in Sector 7. My team has spent the last cycle studying this world, and our findings are unprecedented." A low murmur spread through the chamber. The council head, a being made purely of crystalline energy, leaned forward. "Proceed with your report, lead researcher." Marcus activated his holographic display, showing a beautiful blue-green planet spinning slowly in the air. "This is Earth," he announced. "At first glance, it appears to be a standard Class M planet. However, our detailed scans revealed something far more sinister." He zoomed in on the planet's surface, displaying readings that made several council members gasp. "The gravity is crushing, 9.8 meters per second squared. The atmosphere is thick with reactive oxygen, a corrosive gas that would destroy most known life forms. But these aren't even the most terrifying aspects." Marcus switched to another display, showing various creatures from Earth. The dominant species, which calls itself human, has not only survived these conditions but thrived in them. They walk upright against this crushing gravity, breathing oxygen as if it were normal. Their bodies are composed of nearly 60% liquid water, a universal solvent that should destroy organic matter. One of the council members, a gaseous being, pulsed with disbelief. Surely they must be simple creatures, barely surviving. Marcus shook his head grimly. That's what makes this situation so alarming. They are intelligent, technologically advanced, and expanding rapidly. But listen to this. They can survive temperatures ranging from their planet's frozen poles to scorching deserts. They can heal from grievous injuries that would end any other species. They can even regrow certain body parts. The hologram changed to show humans performing various activities. They intentionally expose themselves to dangerous radiation from their star for pleasure. They willingly enter bodies of water, bodies of universal solvent, for entertainment. Their young engage in high-risk physical activities that would kill most adult beings from other worlds. The council head's crystal structure pulsed with concern. "What are your recommendations, lead researcher?" "We must establish a quarantine zone immediately," Marcus replied, his voice urgent. "But there's more. These humans, they're actively trying to leave their death world. They've already sent primitive ships beyond their atmosphere. They dream of colonizing other planets, planets they consider even more hostile than their own." The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Marcus waited for the noise to settle before delivering his final point. Most disturbing of all is their complete ignorance of their own deadly nature. They consider themselves fragile, normal even. They have no idea that they are living weapons, capable of surviving conditions that would instantly kill 99.9% of all known species in the galaxy. The council head raised all its facets for attention. "Lead researcher, what classification do you recommend for this world?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I recommend classifying Earth as a Class X death world, the highest possible threat level. We must place warning beacons throughout their solar system. Any contact with these humans could result in catastrophic contamination of other worlds." As the council members debated furiously among themselves, Marcus added one final chilling observation. "The humans have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.' On their death world, everything has tried to kill them. And they have grown stronger than we could have ever imagined." The council head's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "We will review your findings and vote on the quarantine measure. Until then, all exploration vessels are to avoid Sector 7. We cannot risk contact with these survivors." As Marcus gathered his data crystals and left the platform, He couldn't help but wonder what other horrors that beautiful blue-green death world might be hiding. The humans were out there, counting the stars, dreaming of meeting new life forms, completely unaware that they were the most terrifying species in the known universe. Despite the warnings from lead researcher Marcus, the Galactic Council's Exploration Division decided to send their most advanced ship, the Starweaver, to study Earth up close. Captain Reed of the Starweaver was confident that the reports were exaggerated. After all, how dangerous could a single planet be? The massive ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Its adaptive hull, designed to withstand the harshest environments known to the galaxy, gleamed under the light of the yellow star. The crew of 20 consisted of the most experienced explorers from various species across the galaxy. Initial scans complete, Captain, announced First Officer Blake, his tentacles moving gracefully across the control panel. The planet's gravity is concerning. Captain Reed waved one of his 3 hands dismissively. Our suits are designed for high-gravity environments. Begin approach sequence. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, the ship's advanced systems struggled against unexpected forces. The hull creaked ominously, something that had never happened before, even in gas giant storms. Captain, Blake's color changed from green to pale yellow in alarm. The atmospheric pressure is far beyond our calculations, and these readings, the air is saturated with corrosive oxygen. The landing party, consisting of 5 crew members, prepared in the ship's hangar. They doubled their protective suits' power, something they'd only done once before on a volcanic moon. Surely this would be enough for a simple Class M planet. They chose a quiet landing spot in a region humans called Montana. It was nighttime, and their scans showed no human settlements nearby. Perfect for a covered study mission. The moment the landing party stepped onto Earth's surface, they knew something was terribly wrong. Even with powered suits, the gravity pulled at them like a hungry beast. Each step required enormous effort. "This is impossible," gasped Science Officer Wells, his crystalline form vibrating with stress. The suits should be compensating for the gravity. Then came their first encounter with Earth's wildlife. A small creature, what humans would recognize as a common raccoon, emerged from the darkness. The landing party's sensors identified it as a predator, but such a tiny thing couldn't possibly be dangerous. They were wrong. The raccoon, curious about these strange visitors, approached them. Science Officer Wells attempted to scan it, but in doing so, he accidentally triggered the animal's defensive instincts. The raccoon, feeling threatened, charged at the landing party. What happened next would become legendary in galactic exploration history. The small predator moved with impossible speed under the crushing gravity. It leaped several times its own height, something that should have been physically impossible in such conditions. Its claws, though tiny by galactic standards, easily scratched the surface of their advanced protective suits. In the panic that followed, 2 crew members fell. Their suits, overwhelmed by Earth's gravity and damaged by the raccoon's attack, began to malfunction. The oxygen-rich atmosphere started seeping in through microscopic cracks. "Emergency evacuation," shouted Team Leader Jones, his bioluminescent patches flashing in distress. "Return to the ship immediately." But Earth had one final surprise for them. As they retreated, microscopic organisms, Earth bacteria, had already begun colonizing their suits through the tiny scratches. By the time they reached the ship, all 5 members of the landing party were experiencing severe reactions to these invisible invaders. Captain Reed ordered an immediate departure from Earth's atmosphere. As the Starweaver broke orbit, he sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. Lead researcher Marcus was right. Earth is not just dangerous, it's lethal. Even its smallest life forms are deadly. The gravity alone nearly killed our best team. The atmosphere is poison, and invisible creatures attack through the smallest breach in our defenses. We lost 3 crew members to what the humans would probably consider a minor wildlife encounter. This is no ordinary planet. This is a world that turns everything, even its tiniest inhabitants, into perfect killing machines. Recommend immediate implementation of Class X quarantine protocols. Earth must be avoided at all costs. The medical bay of the Galactic Research Station hummed with activity as Dr. Hall, the leading xenobiologist, stared at her screens in disbelief. After the Starweaver incident, the Council had authorized remote observation of Earth, and the data they collected was causing panic throughout the scientific community. "This can't be right," she muttered, her scaled skin shifting colors in agitation. "Run the analysis again." Her assistant, Medical Officer Turner, input the commands with his lower arms while his upper pair gestured at the displays. "Doctor, we've run it 12 times. The results are consistent. These humans, they're biological impossibilities." The main screen showed detailed scans of human medical records, secretly collected from their primitive digital networks. Images of humans recovering from injuries that would permanently end any other species filled the display. "Look at this," Dr. Hall pointed with a trembling appendage. "They'd break their support structures, these bones, and instead of dying, they simply grow them back together. They call it healing." Turner's breathing sacs inflated in shock. But that's not even the most disturbing part. These humans, they deliberately damage their muscle fibers through something called exercise to become stronger. They intentionally tear themselves apart to grow more powerful. The next set of data made both scientists recoil. It showed humans keeping predatory creatures in their living spaces, creatures they called pets. Images of humans sleeping next to sharp-toothed carnivores, playing with venomous serpents, and riding massive herbivores filled the screens. "They're young," Dr. Hall continued, her voice shaking, "require constant supervision not because they're fragile, but because they actively try to consume toxic substances and throw themselves from heights. They survive things that would kill any reasonable species." A new alert flashed on their screens. The observation drones had captured footage of a human ritual called surgery. The medical team watched in horror as human doctors deliberately cut open other humans, removed or replaced organs, and then closed them up, with the patients surviving and recovering. "Their immune system," Turner whispered, pulling up more data. "It's not just a defense mechanism. It's an army of microscopic warriors. When they survive a disease, they become stronger against it. They can adapt to new pathogens within days. Some of them deliberately expose themselves to weakened diseases to become immune." Dr. Hall moved to the biological comparison charts. "Their endurance capabilities are off the scale. They persist in physical activity long after most species would collapse. They can survive without water for days, recover from blood loss that would end any other creature, and their pain tolerance. It's as if pain means nothing to them." The station's alert system suddenly blared. A new observation had come in. Humans participating in something called a marathon. They're running for fun. Turner's color faded to a pale green. 42 kilometers in that gravity, under their scorching sun, and they do this voluntarily. Dr. Hall's appendages trembled as she compiled her report for the Council. "These humans are apex predators that don't realize they're apex predators. They can eat almost anything. They've developed resistance to substances that would poison most species. They can survive the loss of limbs, expose themselves to radiation for entertainment, and their bodies are constantly at war with millions of microscopic invaders." She paused, watching a video of humans participating in something called extreme sports. "But perhaps the most terrifying thing," she continued, "is their adaptability. They can survive in almost any environment on their death world. From freezing tundra to scorching deserts, they found ways to not just survive, but thrive. And now they want to explore space." Turner's breathing sacs nearly collapsed. "They want to leave their death world, to explore even deadlier places." "Yes," Dr. Hall confirmed, finalizing her report. "And they call it adventure. We must warn the Council. These humans aren't just surviving on a death world. They are the death world's ultimate creation, a species so resilient, so adaptable, and so unaware of their own terrifying nature that they think they're normal. May the stars help any species that underestimates them. The Galactic Environmental Survey team huddled around their monitoring station, watching in horror as another natural disaster unfolded on Earth. Chief Environment Analyst Peters, a being made of pure energy contained within a protective field, flickered anxiously as she compiled the latest data. "This is beyond anything we've ever documented," she announced to her team. "In the past Earth month alone, we've recorded 50 earthquakes, 3 major storms they call hurricanes, and an erupting volcano. And the humans, they just continue with their daily lives." On the main screen, footage showed humans rebuilding their structures after something they called a tornado had torn through their settlement. Instead of abandoning the dangerous region, they were constructing new buildings, stronger than before. Senior Analyst Brown, his crystalline form vibrating with disbelief, pulled up another set of data. "Look at their settlement patterns. They build cities in places that regularly experience these disasters. They live next to active volcanoes, in earthquake zones, and in areas prone to massive ice storms." Speaking of ice, Peters interrupted, "Their planet's temperature variations are lethal. Some regions go from 40 degrees below freezing to 50 degrees above in a single planetary cycle. Most species would die from such changes, but humans just put on or remove layers of clothing and continue their activities." The team watched footage from different Earth environments. In one region, humans were surfing on massive waves during a storm. In another, they were climbing snow-covered mountains where the air was too thin for most species to survive. Some were even exploring underground caves filled with toxic gases. "Their adaptability is terrifying," noted research specialist White, her tentacles curling in anxiety. "We've documented human settlements in virtually every environment on their planet. They live in frozen wastelands near the poles, in scorching deserts, in dense jungles full of predators, and even on mountains above the clouds." A new alert flashed across their screens. Somewhere in a region called California, a massive forest fire was raging. But instead of fleeing the area permanently, humans were actively fighting the fire, deliberately getting close to the inferno. "They don't just survive these conditions," Peters observed, her energy form pulsing with excitement and fear. "They challenge them. Look at this. They build structures to withstand earthquakes. They chase storms to study them. They monitor volcanoes by getting close to them. It's as if the deadly nature of their world has made them fearless." White brought up another disturbing set of data. The oxygen levels in their atmosphere should make spontaneous combustion a regular occurrence. Their planet's core is a massive ball of molten metal that regularly causes the crust to crack open. Their single moon creates tidal forces that would drown most coastal species. And yet they thrive," Brown finished. "They turned these lethal conditions into resources. They harness the power of their volcanoes, build generators powered by their deadly winds, and even capture energy from their scorching sun." Peters began working on her report to the Council. Perhaps most terrifying is their response to these disasters. They don't just survive them. They study them, prepare for them, and rebuild stronger after them. Every environmental catastrophe seems to make them more resilient. The team watched as humans in protective gear worked to redirect a lava flow threatening their settlement. Instead of abandoning the area, they were fighting against the very forces of their planet's geology. "We must upgrade our classification of Earth," Peters declared. "It's not just the humans who are deadly. Their entire planet is a weapon. The very forces that should have wiped them out have instead forged them into something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that views environmental catastrophes as mere inconveniences." She added a final note to her report, warning to all galactic species, "Earth's environment has created beings that consider planetary-scale disasters to be normal. Any species that evolved in such conditions must be considered extremely dangerous. They don't just survive the unsurvivable. They challenge it, study it, and emerged stronger from it. The Galactic Historical Analysis Department was in chaos. Military historian Wilson, his crystalline appendages trembling, stared at the screens displaying Earth's combat history. Around him, other researchers were reviewing data about human recreational activities, their faces showing various signs of distress across their different species features. "This can't be right," Wilson muttered, running the analysis again. "Their entire history is just warfare, but they've survived it. They've survived weapons that should have ended their civilization multiple times." Research Director Thomas floated over, her energy form crackling with concern. "It gets worse. Look at what they do for entertainment." The screen shifted to show humans engaging in various sports. Beings from across the galaxy watched in horror as humans deliberately crashed into each other in something called football, willingly entered enclosed spaces to fight one another in boxing, and hurled themselves down frozen mountains on thin boards for skiing. "They simulate combat for fun," Wilson explained to the gathering crowd of researchers. "Their young start training in these sports before they're even fully grown. They practice fighting techniques, build physical strength, and deliberately put themselves in danger as a form of play." Another analyst, senior researcher Miller, brought up a new set of data. "Their technological advancement is directly tied to warfare. Look at this progression. Every major conflict pushed them to develop deadlier weapons, faster vehicles, better medicine. They turned the horrors of war into stepping stones for progress." The room fell silent as they watched footage of human children playing in a park. The young humans were climbing tall structures, swinging at high speeds, and engaging in mock combat with each other. Activities that would be considered life-threatening on most worlds were just normal childhood games on Earth. "Their entertainment media is even more disturbing," Thomas added, displaying clips from human movies and video games. "They create simulations of historic battles, imagine future wars, and spend hours practicing combat scenarios in virtual environments. They're constantly preparing for conflict, even during their leisure time." Wilson pulled up medical data about human stress responses. When faced with danger, their bodies release chemicals that make them stronger, faster, and more resistant to pain. They call it adrenaline, and some of them deliberately seek out activities that trigger this response. They become addicted to their own combat chemicals. The screen showed humans participating in extreme sports, jumping from high places with thin fabric parachutes, climbing sheer cliff faces without safety equipment, and diving into deep ocean waters. "Their physical training is beyond comprehension," Miller noted, displaying gym footage. "They deliberately tear and rebuild their muscles to become stronger. They practice fighting styles that could kill most species with a single blow. Their soldiers can carry weights that would crush our strongest exoskeletons." Thomas brought up historical records of human survival stories. "Look at this. When faced with life-threatening situations, they often become more dangerous. Their bodies can ignore fatal injuries through sheer force of will. They have documented cases of humans lifting massive objects, running on broken legs, or fighting off predators when their survival instincts activate." Wilson began composing his report to the council, his crystals pulsing with nervous energy. "We must understand. These humans aren't just survivors of a death world. They're warriors forged by constant conflict, both against their environment and each other. Their entire species has evolved with combat as a driving force." The final analysis appeared on the main screen, a comparison of human combat capabilities with other known species. The results were terrifying. While not the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced, humans possessed a combination of endurance, adaptability, and sheer determination that made them lethal opponents. "Add this to the final report," Thomas instructed. "Warning: humans don't just practice warfare. They have turned it into an art form. They study it, refine it, and pass combat knowledge down through generations. Every human, whether they realize it or not, is a potential warrior. Their games are combat training. Their sports are battle preparation, and their leisure activities would be considered military drills on most worlds. Do not engage in conflict with humans. They have been preparing for it their entire lives. The emergency session of the Galactic Council's Space Exploration Committee was in its third day. Admiral Cooper, her bioluminescent patches glowing with stress, presented the latest findings about human space activities to the horrified committee members. They're not just looking at the stars, she explained, her tentacles gesturing at the display showing human space programs. They're actively planning to colonize environments even more hostile than their death world. They call it the final frontier, as if the deadly vacuum of space is just another challenge to overcome. The main screen showed footage of early human space missions. Committee members watched in shock as humans strapped themselves to primitive rockets filled with explosive fuel, willingly risking death just to reach their orbit. Senior space analyst Jackson, his crystalline form vibrating with concern, brought up more recent data. They've already established a permanent orbital station. Their astronauts live up there for months, deliberately exposing themselves to radiation and zero-gravity conditions that would kill most species. But that's not even the worst part, Cooper continued, switching to plans for future human space missions. They're planning to colonize Mars, a planet even more hostile than Earth. No atmosphere, deadly radiation, dust storms that can last for months. And they're excited about going there. The committee reviewed human science fiction media, their horror growing as they realized the scope of human ambitions. Stories of space colonization, dealing with alien species, and surviving in the harshest environments filled their entertainment channels. Look at their space suit designs, Jackson pointed out. While other species build complex ships to avoid exposure to space, humans create suits that let them walk directly in vacuum. They want to experience space up close, to touch it, to conquer it like they've conquered every hostile environment on their planet. New data flashed across the screens, human plans for terraforming Mars, building bases on their moon, and even dreams of interstellar travel. The committee members watched in disbelief as humans seriously discussed sending their species to other star systems. Their scientists are already working on theoretical faster-than-light travel, Cooper reported, her glow pulsing with anxiety. They're not content with just their solar system. They want to explore the entire galaxy. Research Director Lee, her gas form swirling in distress, presented the psychological analysis. Their entire culture is focused on expansion and exploration. They make plans for surviving in environments that would instantly kill most life forms. Even their children dream of becoming astronauts. The screens showed human space training facilities. Young humans in simulated space environments, learning to operate in zero gravity, preparing for missions that seemed impossible by galactic standards. They've even started designing ships for long-term space travel, Jackson added. They're planning generational ships, vessels where multiple generations would live and die during the journey to other stars. The very idea would terrify most species, but humans volunteer for these potential missions. Cooper began summarizing her final report. The committee must understand. These humans aren't just surviving on a death world. They're actively seeking out even deadlier environments. They treat the harsh vacuum of space as just another frontier to conquer. The committee watched footage of human astronauts conducting spacewalks, floating in the void protected by only a thin layer of material, making repairs to their space stations while surrounded by instant death. Our final assessment is clear, Cooper concluded. Humanity's space ambitions make them the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. They don't fear the void. They embrace it. They don't run from deadly environments. They seek them out. And now they're looking to the stars, dreaming of finding new worlds to explore, new challenges to overcome. She added the final warning to her report. Any species that encounters humans in space must understand. These beings evolved on a death world, survived countless extinctions, and now view the deadly vacuum of space as their next destination. They are not just surviving anymore. They are expanding, and the galaxy itself, may not be enough to contain their ambitions. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from 10,000 worlds sat in complete silence as they watched the final compilation of evidence about Earth and its inhabitants. Supreme Chancellor Anderson, their most experienced leader, stood before them, his crystalline form dim with concern. "Members of the Council," he began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Today we make history. For the first time in our million-year existence, we must classify an entire solar system as a Class X restricted zone. The evidence we have seen cannot be ignored." The massive screens around the chamber displayed highlights from all the previous reports. Humans surviving lethal conditions, their terrifying biological capabilities, their mastery over environmental disasters, their warrior heritage, and their relentless drive to explore space. "We have placed warning beacons at every approach to their solar system," reported Defense Minister Taylor, her energy form flickering anxiously. The beacons broadcast in all known languages, warning ships to stay at least 1 light-year away from Earth's star system. The chamber's central hologram displayed the new warning beacon's message. "Danger, Silas X Death World. AP Pro HH, at your own risk. Native species, humans. 380 Leveal, max admuum." "But will the beacons be enough?" asked a delegate from a gas-based civilization. "These humans, they're actively trying to reach the stars. What happens when they develop faster than light travel?" Chancellor Anderson's crystalline structure pulsed with grave concern. "That is why today's declaration goes beyond mere warnings. We must prepare all civilizations for potential contact with humans. They are not just dangerous. They are dangerous in ways we never imagined possible." The screen showed compilation footage. Humans drinking poison for entertainment, alcohol, deliberately depriving themselves of sleep for days, running impossible distances for fun, fighting apex predators with primitive tools, and surviving conditions that would instantly kill most species. "The most terrifying aspect," continued Science Director Roberts, her tentacles waving in agitation, "is their complete lack of awareness. They think they're normal. They believe they're fragile. They have no idea that they are the apex predators of the galaxy." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as Roberts displayed more data. "They call their world Earth, a simple name for what we now know is the most perfectly designed killing ground in the known universe. It has forged its inhabitants into beings that can survive almost anywhere, adapt to any condition, and overcome any obstacle." Security Chief Wilson stepped forward, his metallic scales reflecting the chamber's lights. "We've documented humans casually discussing scenarios that would drive most species to extinction. They call them movies and video games. They imagine world-ending disasters and think about how to survive them, for fun. Even their greeting ceremonies are terrifying," added cultural analyst Martin, displaying footage of humans shaking hands. "They initiate first contact by grabbing each other's primary manipulation appendages, a gesture that would be considered an attack on most worlds." Chancellor Anderson raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "Our final decree is this: Earth and its solar system are now officially quarantined. No species may attempt contact without unanimous council approval. We will monitor their progress, but we must not interfere." The chamber's mood grew even more somber as Anderson continued. When they develop interstellar travel, we must be prepared. They will emerge from their death world expecting to find harsh, lethal environments. Instead, they will find worlds that they consider paradise, populated by species they might accidentally destroy with a friendly pat on the back. The final warning was entered into the galactic record. "Let it be known to all species, humans are not evil. They are not malicious. They are something far more dangerous. They are survivors of the universe's most lethal known world, and they don't even realize how terrifying they are. They face death every day and think it's normal. They explore deadly environments for fun. They challenge their limits simply to see if they can avoid Earth at all costs. The creatures there don't know they're monsters, and that's what makes them the deadliest beings in the galaxy.